Pleasure to meet everyone. And I did want to take the time first just to thank you guys for sitting in on my presentation. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I'm strongly passionate about partnerships. And even during the pandemic, I invested heavily into looking at research from Jay McBain, looking at the Partnered podcast by Adam, and seeing folks in real life in terms of what the partnership leaders team was to put together for this event has been awesome. I mean, just seeing Jay here earlier with the spotlights on him talking about cars, which I love, I was having a pretty strong fanboy moment, and I absolutely loved it. So hopefully you guys are having the same experience thus far. As I mentioned, my name is Brian Naji, and I'm a Director of Alliances at Workiva. Now, today's topic is scaling your startup using consulting and advisory firms. Now, just from speaking to a few of you about this topic during this conference and just knowing the industry pretty well, there's not a lot of strategic content out there that really guides you through that process on how to effectively build and scale these types of partnerships for growth. It's not a simple process. It takes time, it takes grit, it takes motivation, and it takes a lot of investment on both sides. But if you do it right, it will truly breed multi-million-dollar revenue for you and your company. So we do have a lot of content to cover today. The content itself is not only based off of my past successes in working with the likes of the Big Four, some of your mid-market players, and some of your smaller regional players, but I was also able to tap into my internal network of industry leaders that have built and scaled these types of partnerships to be 7- and even 8-figure revenue streams for their companies. So hopefully with the expansive opinions, mistakes made along the journey, and really considerations to take, you guys walk away today really understanding the level of effort it takes to build these types of partnerships. So I figured it'd be good to give you guys a little background on myself. So I've been on both the consulting side of the house as well as the software side of the house. So I started my career off at a global consulting company called Protiviti. Spent 3 years there before jumping over into an early stage startup called Audit Board, where this was my first experience of working not only in partnerships, but closely with the co-founder in building and effectively scaling the growth of these partnerships to be a very significant stream of revenue for us by the moment I left. From there, I jumped into a larger consulting company, Cognizant, which I'm sure most of you are familiar with, until jumping over into Workiva about a year ago, where now I manage the overall relationship with a number of our consulting and advisory firms. Now, this first slide is very relevant for you folks that may not know the full value that these firms can deliver for your company, or you may be in a position right now where you're pitching this value to your executive team and you need a few additional points to really stick the point home as to why you need to start working with these firms. So the first point here is to scale quickly. Seems pretty straightforward. Of course, as a startup, you're looking to scale as quickly and effectively as possible. And the ultimate goal there is, of course, 2 exits. One is through acquisition, or the other is through IPO. Now, in either case, in my opinion, it is the best way to get there is to partner with one of these firms and do it very well. Now, let me give you a little bit of a picture. So, of course, as a startup, you're likely in the ranks of, say, 50 to 250 employees by the time you want to approach one of these firms. You have an established tool in the space. You've likely sold into a significant amount of clients, but you've hit a plateau, and that plateau cannot be overachieved unless you either invest significantly in additional headcount in your sales team and marketing team, and it's going to take you a few years to get there. Other scenario is to partner with one of these larger firms, and they're going to allow you to not only have an extension of your sales arm, because these folks have anywhere from 500 to hundreds of thousands of different employees operating at a global level. So by effectively partnering with them, you're extending your sales team by having those folks, once properly onboarded and enabled, working closely with your sales team in effectively selling into their prospective client base. Not only that, but you're also allowing them to work closely with your product and development teams, having them be the subject matter experts in the space that your industry operates in, working closely with them to enhance your product roadmap and your current solution offering. Also, your marketing arm. This is one area that's very overlooked in partnering with these firms, because as a startup, you likely have anywhere from, say, 1 to 10,000 followers on LinkedIn. Now, a Deloitte, a KPMG, they have millions of followers on LinkedIn. And not only that, but they are your target audience. So unless you're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on marketing to reach that target audience, you can effectively partner with these firms, simply post one item, and I've had this happen before, and that translates into lead generation simply from their awareness that they're working with your firm now. So as you can see, by having this company or this consulting company now working with every arm of your organization, you're setting yourself up to scale quickly in a manner that you did not think possible in a short period of time. Now, this goes well into the next point here, which is innovate. So as I mentioned, these consulting and advisory firms have subject matter experts across the board. So what these folks are doing is they're keeping up with the industry trends. They're speaking directly with your ICPs. And not only that, but they're very deeply ingrained in those clients. So they're going to tell you exactly what you need to build into your solution for future state, current state, and that will allow you to stay not only relevant in the market, but very competitive, because you guys saw Jay McBain's sheet earlier, and he said how much that has progressed year over year to include more and more logos. I mean, at this point, you need a magnifying glass just to look at the specific logos in each area. And that's probably the case in the solution areas or industry that you guys are operating in. So just make sure that you're staying close with these folks, because they want to help you, because at the end of the day, it's going to help their clients. I mentioned this earlier, but entering new markets. So of course, by partnering with these firms, expanding your global presence, you're effectively increasing the geographies that you operate in. If you've historically never gone down market, up market, worked with SMBs, these firms will introduce you to those folks and have you start gaining them as your client base. Now, the last piece here is truly something that you need to take to heart, because I feel like as a partner leader, it is our duty to really set the company up for success. This was said in an earlier session where the partnerships department is truly the one department in the organization that effectively works with each arm of the organization very deeply. So if you're setting up the partnership up for success, then you're effectively setting up the company for success, reducing the risk of failing, and at the end of the day, reaching new avenues that's going to get you closer to that IPO or acquisition. Okay, so the next piece is one I'm very excited about. It's probably a little biased, but by a show of hands, how many of you remember the ShamWow from Billy Mays? So, controversial opinion here. This is more revolutionary than the ShamWow, what I'm about to present to you. Again, pretty biased, but let's jump in. So, I don't know about you guys, but me personally, I do like a step-by-step process that tells me exactly how to build something and scale it for growth. Now, in this case, I've developed this 9-step process that walks you through exactly from starting from scratch all the way down to effectively scaling these types of partnerships to be the behemoths in terms of revenue generator for your company. And again, this is not just my past successes. These are an accumulation of opinions from other industry leaders that have built it at their respective companies. So, Step one, like any new idea, department, in this case partnership, you need to develop that business case that is going to sell your executive team on why you should be working with this alliance. So you want to know your audience in this case, whether that's the C-suite, executive team, internal stakeholders, essentially anyone that's going to be actively involved in this partnership. You need to know what they care about. So you want to think through things like, how is this going to increase the overall revenue for my company? How is this going to enhance the customer journey? And that is a very strong point there I wanted to really hone in on because, in my opinion, consulting and advisory firms really enhance that customer journey like no other partner can enhance. Everything from your sales process, where your sales talk track is now going to be enhanced based off of exactly what this advisory firm is telling you that these clients are virtually aware of, what they want in a sales process. It's going to make it a lot more free flow, conversational, and ultimately you're going to earn the respect a lot more from these prospective clients by having that advisory firm or consulting firm that they've worked with for many years sitting at the same table with you. It's going to enhance their implementation experience. Of course, this is the death of the 10% referral fees. Deloitte could care less about 10%. KPMG could care less about 10%. 20%, they could care less about 40%. What they want is implementation and adjacent services that come with the land and expand opportunity. They want to get introduced to your clients. They want to implement the solution that they're purchasing. And at the end of the day, it's going to translate into 7, 8 figures, or 6, 7, 8 figures of work for them, depending on how long that engagement is. So that is step one of the process. Step two is really securing that support. So in this case, you want to be able to have your company invest in you in order to set you up for success. So not only do you need the stamp of approval from your executive team, but you also need to be able to have them provide you funding for your department. Have them provide you additional headcount once it becomes relevant. And ultimately, just make sure that everyone is on the same page, because one of the worst things that you can do is have an executive team that is resistant to partnerships. They see it as an experiment. They see it as something that, hey, we'll throw a part-time resource at it and hopefully it sticks. You need that executive team bought in order for you to be successful. Number 3 here is establishing the revenue goals. Now, this is a process that really humbled me because I had zero experience with finance. I had no idea what a forecasting model is. I had no idea how to build out these revenue goals. So make sure that if you're already engaged with the partner at this point, you're talking with your partner and setting those realistic expectations. Keyword there is realistic. So making sure that you're aligned with them on, hey, how much revenue can you deliver me in year 1, year 2, year 3, and beyond? And I think this was brought up in one of the sessions yesterday. It might be good to even have a proxy quarter with that partner where you essentially start working with them with a quarter, and then based on your experience with them, you see if the talk matches the walk, that they're actually providing you with the referrals and vice versa. Now, I won't spend too much time on this next point here, but building a dedicated team to really manage this partnership. Initially, you're just going to have one person. I mean, I know I was hire one at my old company. You folks are likely, maybe some of you may be sole contributors at your company for partnerships, but just make sure that that one person is full-time, because otherwise you're going to be losing momentum. You're not going to be gaining any sort of long-term objectives or goals. Everything's just going to be prolonged in the overall process. So just make sure that the team that you're building is initially full-time, and then you cascade it as you start to grow your business. Now, personal plug here, I do have my own passion project of Partnerships Junkies that it's called Partnerships Junkie, that I build out articles. I've created an article amongst other points that I'm bringing up today. So follow me on LinkedIn, but this article essentially guides you step by step on what you should be considering as part of your hiring process for your partnerships team. Now, this next step here, establishing your structure and your systems, is going to be critical because this is when you start to build that infrastructure, the processes, and essentially everything that is going to be working internally and externally on when this alliance is brought to the table. Do not take this point very lightly because you're now building things like a partner program guide, your sales engagement process, your referral fees structure, whatever else it may be. Make sure you're involving your marketing and design team in this process to pretty up your documentation. Make sure that you're involving your sales team and educating them on how to work with your partners. Make sure you're educating your product and development teams on how to effectively work with these partners. Because at the end of the day, this is going to be the first impression that the partner is going to have in working with your firm, and you want to make sure that they have a great experience. So again, establishing things, do not take any shortcuts here, and make sure that you are putting in some investment into making things very well or smooth for your partner once they start working with you. Now, this next step here, researching and evaluating your partners. This is when you start to identify your partner, whether you, and I know a lot of people make this mistake, do not first approach the Big Four as your first partner, please, because in most cases, you're going to be making mistakes with that first partner, and you do not want to miss your chance of working with a Deloitte in the future, a KPMG in the future. You want to pick a very strategic partner that is very aware that they are the guinea pig in this case, and work with them to enhance your documentation, enhance your processes, up until the point that you do reach the level that you're ready for a Big Four, you're ready for an RSM, you're ready for a BCG. But one of the points I wanted to hone in on here is please do your homework, research the partner, reach out to your network and ask them what is in it for these partners. This comes up as a consistent topic. What is in it for them? If you come to the table with a Grant Thornton, with an RSM, and you tell them, yeah, we'll throw you a 10% referral fee, like that's not going to stick. And ultimately, that's going to lead to maybe your shot at ever working with them completely lost because you may only get one shot at the table, so make sure it counts. And Partnership Leaders is a great community to reach out to because truly there are a lot of folks that have been there, done that with these firms, and they'll tell you exactly what they're expecting in meeting number one. I won't spend too much time on these last three, but creating a business plan, essentially developing the metrics that are pegged towards the alliance goals and progress. In year one, you're not going to be realizing a lot of revenue from these folks. It may be, a few opportunities here and there, but this is the build phase. So you want to make sure you're keeping your executive team and all the other stakeholders in the know of what's to come in year one, year two, year three, and building that plan to be supportive of your goals and objectives. Do not dig yourself in a hole here because that will translate into bad from the executive's eyes on how you're progressing with this partnership. Now, building on trust, of course, fostering a collaborative behavior with this partner is going to be key, but also something that most people disregard is fostering collaborative behavior with your internal stakeholders. If you disregard your internal stakeholders, folks like your head of sales, head of implementation, head of customer success, head of anyone that's going to be involved in this partnership, and they're not aware of what's coming on down the line, they're not aware that partners are going to be implementing next week, they're not aware of a lot of these things that are coming down the line, it's going to lead to them being resistant to working with your partners. And I've encountered this in the past, and it just makes your life a lot more difficult when you're dealing with internal struggles as well as struggles with the partner, because setting up a partner in the mid-market or Big Four space is already hard enough. So you want to make sure that you're fostering those internal stakeholders to be also on your side. And then last thing here is continuous performance management. So of course, just making sure that this alliance is not going to run itself. So just putting in the right processes, dashboards, cadence meetings with your executive team to make sure that they are continuously aware of the progress you're making and anything that is a significant milestone to call out. So, yeah, that is the 9-step process. I mean, again, a lot of thought and methodology came into this. And again, I just want to make sure that you guys understand that this is a proper foundation. It's not going to work at every startup. You do have to take into consideration any sort of variables that may be specific to your environment. But if done right and if followed right, then you are going to be setting yourself up for success. So now we're going to get into a little bit more granular points. So as you're starting to work with this partner a little bit more and engaging them more in your sales process and your implementation process, you, for a fact, are going to encounter resistance from folks internally. Most commonly, salespeople. So salespeople, especially your top sellers, and we're going to be doing a little role play here, are going to be resistant to bringing in a third party to their sales process. So this is a conversation I've had with a seller before. So there is Mr. Seller right here and Brian here. Now, Mr. Seller, just to give some context, is very angry that he has to start working with partners. So let's begin. For context, Mr. Seller is a grown man, not a 4-year-old child. Brian, what is this I hear that I have to start working with a partner? I've always hit my top marks. I've always had a very solid sales process. At the end of the day, I've hit President's Club 4 years in a row. Why are you telling me that I have to bring in a third party that could potentially ruin my opportunities? Well, Mr. Seller, I completely hear you. I see where you're coming from and totally understand that you are seeing this third party as potentially ruining your opportunities. Now, before I let you leave, let me ask you a couple questions that could possibly change your perception on working with these partners. 1, what is your average sales cycle? And then 2, what's your average contract value that you've sold? Well, it's actually top of the company right now of what I'm selling, how fast I'm selling, and the average contract value. Right now, I'm selling on average in 3 months, and the average contract value is $45K. Well, I mean, those are top marks. Congratulations on those. Now, what if I told you by working with one of these firms, you can increase your contract value to $65,000, and you can reduce your sales cycle to 2 months, effectively allowing you to now work on more opportunities, increase your close rate, and allowing you to now increase your overall quota? So, I mean, at the end of the day, you have to put yourself in the seller's shoes, put yourself in the implementation person's shoes. I totally get why they're frustrated. I totally get that they see it as a risk for their opportunities. You need to make sure that you're not being defensive with these folks and you're bringing in factual information to the table, because those facts I just threw out, I didn't just throw them out. That was exactly the case in the data. It helped reduce the sales cycle at my previous firm by 50%, and it helped increase the contract value by 25%. That's a lot. And top sellers are going to be very receptive to that. And not only that, but you want the top seller to be one of the first people working with the partner, because they hone in on the respect, or other sellers respect them more. And you want to build that case study with that seller once they've effectively sold with the partner, sold well with the partner, and translate that over into the other sellers to have them knock on your door, as opposed to you trying to convince them to start working with these firms. So for my last slide here, if there's 3 things I want you to walk away with today from, it's first, start early, build, develop over time, scale fast. Really want to tone in on number 2 there. I mean, you guys saw it from the 9-step process. You guys saw it from the value that these alliances can deliver. Do not take any shortcuts here and really invest in making this partnership successful. Again, this was brought up in another session, but do not try to bring on 4 or 5 to start off with. Focus on 1 and go hard and heavy on that 1. Make sure that you're setting up that partnership to be very successful by following that step-by-step process and fostering the trust, building the relationships, managing everyone internally. And at the end of the day, you want to make a name for yourself because you're likely not going to be staying at your current company for many years to come. You want to be able to take that, have an additional thing on your resume that told you, hey, I effectively built a partnership with the Big Four and scaled it to X amount of dollars, and I could do the same at your company at a larger scale. Because at that point, you've built those relationships internally. You know who exactly to work with on the partner side, because that's one of the most difficult things to do, is really get into these firms. And once you get in and build out that relationship and invest, the rewards are going to keep on coming in. This one, fostering a mutually beneficial partnership. Again, making sure you truly understand what's in it for them. I mean, I hate to break it to everyone, but the consulting company is going to be seeing you as getting more value out of this partnership initially than they are. So you need to make sure that you're investing and making sure that they're seeing the value and that you're delivering on that value. So just make sure you're putting the proper processes in place. If you're committing to providing them with referrals to your clients, make sure that you're putting proper processes in customer success, in sales, to add discovery questions to the mix, to add whatever else that needs to happen in order for you to identify those opportunities for your partner. And then the last piece here, which I touched on, is managing the internal stakeholders. So, of course, just making sure that the internal stakeholders are brought in and kept in the know of what's coming in. So, I know we have 2 minutes left here. Not sure if there's any Q&A, but really want to thank everyone here for the opportunity to speak. And hopefully you guys got something out of this, so thank you.